Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the second episode of Constellation Crew for the spring semester of 2022. As always, my name is Greg Gallagher. I'll be your host this evening, coming to you live from the Brown Planetarium, located here on the wonderfully cold and rainy campus of Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. Tonight, I am joined by Madeline and Caleb. Nicolette is in the chat, so everybody say hi to Nicolette.
Sup, Nicolette?
So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Nicolette's really good, and she'll do her best to get those questions answered for you guys. Okay? You guys staying warm and dry today?
Surprisingly.
Yeah, it was going pretty hard earlier. So.
Oh, I know. That's the good thing, right, about being students, though. Like, I'm just in my office or class all day,
Yeah.
so I only spend like literally 2 minutes right from my car to the building. So
yeah, I was there from like 10 to like 5, and I must have missed all like the intense downpour.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, right? When I left my apartment this morning, it wasn't like it was raining pretty bad, but then when I got here, I got really lucky and it had really lightened up. So, but anywho, so today, guys, we have a really exciting show for you. It's our first episode of Archaeoastronomy, where we're going to visit the ancient Celts, and we're really excited for it. But first, Madeline has some ways for us all to interact with the night sky on our own, right? We don't have to be, back in ancient Celtic lands to be able to interact with our night sky anymore, right? So Madeline, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so, sometimes you're like, hey, I want to like go out and observe some night, but you're like, what do I need to do in order to do that? So I drew in on some of my knowledge from observational astronomy class, and also just like some stuff that I'd found on my own for stuff. So first thing, like, what do you guys think is like the first thing you should do before you like plan your, observing endeavors?
I would check the weather. God, check Weather Channel.
I second that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So a really, really handy, like checking the weather on your phone can be great, but sometimes you need just like a little bit more in depth. And shout out to Dr. Barrington for giving us this tool. But there's a handy website called The Weather Underground, and it gives you like the 10-day weather forecast, but like shows you like cloud probabilities, like humidity, and it's really handy.
Wow.
And Caleb can confirm that we used that a lot during class last semester.
Yeah.
That was very useful. Me and my lab partner used it a lot, especially when things were not going our way. So you can even tell like the percentage of cloud cover even, and actually when exactly it will, what precipitation will actually end. So
yeah, that was really handy because me and Nicolette, we closed everything down right in time. Also, I highly suggest timeanddate.com so that you like can get an idea of like when the sun sets or when the sun rises in case you're going to be out there for an extended amount of time.
Yeah.
And you guys might also wonder like, hey, like where are the best areas to actually observe? Because we live in a modern age. There's unfortunately light pollution, and sometimes you're like, where's the best place? Because I know Indiana's light pollution is actually pretty horrible.
Yeah, it's very bad.
There's this website called Dark Sight Finder, and it gives you like an idea of like where the best sky is in your area is, and it's conveniently color coded, which I also along with the link to that site, Nicolette can put that, and also the like kind of an idea of what the color scale means, those links in the chat. And then finally, I think Greg knows about this, but there's a really handy app out there that maybe you are looking up at the night sky and you're like, what the heck is that? And that I'm looking at, and it's called Skyview Light. You can point your phone up at the sky and be like, what is that? And you can like, it'll project what might be in the
Mhm.
what will be in the sky at that time, and you can click on things that'll tell you what they are,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun.
So that's the app is really cool. There are actually multiple apps, right? The Skyview is the one that I use, and I would highly recommend it because it's really simple. But there's a lot of apps out there. We do live in a modern age, like Madeline said, right? So and I'm always constantly, and I actually just had my sister text me literally like 2 weeks ago, sent me a picture of the night sky and said, "Hey, what is this?" And I was like, "I have no idea what direction you're pointing. Like, I don't know what you're doing." And I told her about it, and so she downloaded it. She says she uses it all the time, and it's just a
Mhm.
really like any app that you can find that can project
Yeah.
the night sky and really see what it is. Any of those apps,
Yeah, and there's a lot
highly
of like
recommend. Yeah.
this one, there's a lot like this one that are
Mm-hmm.
completely free to use, so
Yep.
you don't have to spend a bunch of
Yeah.
change.
I have my own like star like map
Mm-hmm.
app that basically that shows me in real time
Right.
the positions of all the planets, stars, and so.
Okay. So we didn't just sign into Constellation Crew, right? We didn't just do this today to tell you guys about all of these different cool apps, right? We actually, had a really cool preview a couple weeks ago where we were going to talk about archaeoastronomy. So when we talk about archaeoastronomy, Crew, what am I talking about here? For those that may not know.
It's basically kind of like the astronomical like knowledge and practices
Mm-hmm.
of ancient civilizations. So like think of the Celts, the Aztecs,
Mm-hmm.
the ancient Egyptians. Put in your favorite ancient civilization, and they probably knew something about the night sky.
Right. So humankind, pretty much since our existence, right, has looked up at the stars and wondered what the heck we were looking at, right? Different cultures had different ideas as to what we were looking at, right? So we thought that it would be a really cool idea if during some of our Constellation Crew episodes, right, we took some time to really dive into some of these different cultures. So this week, we decided for our first episode, we would focus on the ancient Celts, right? So where are the ancient Celts located, Crew?
They're primarily from the I. Wow, that's say that like 5 times fast. The island of Ireland.
There we go.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So ancient Celtic stuff is found all over what we consider right now the modern day UK, right? So Ireland, Great Britain, Scotland, right? Northern Ireland, right? So Wales, all of the modern day UK, right, has links to some of these ancient Celtic peoples, right? And Caleb has some really cool architectural things, right? Because some of the first ways that we knew about ancient peoples, right, is their buildings, right? Think about the Great Pyramids in Egypt, right? So when we think about the Celtics, right, what were some of those archaeological sites that we're talking about here, Caleb?
Well, one that comes to mind to a lot of people, one of the most famous, archaeological sites in the world, is the one known as Stonehenge,
Mm-hmm.
found in England, particularly in the area known as Wiltshire. That's found on what's known as the Salisbury Plain,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of history to it. So Stonehenge is one of the oldest archaeological sites. And it was built like over a great period of time. So not we believe to be a lot of scientists believe it to be built between the period of about 2000 BC
Mm-hmm.
to 3000 BC, and not every part of it was built at the same time. So
Yeah, so kind of like how the like in ancient Egypt, the pyramids took long times to build.
Yeah. So when we're looking at Stonehenge here, Caleb, and there's a picture for everybody to look at. There seems to be kind of a semicircular arrangement with some big blocks in the center. I know there's some question marks about really what Stonehenge was built for, right? But there are some ideas that link to astronomy, right? So what are some of those ideas out there?
like the common a well-known theory is that it
Mm-hmm.
was used as a astronomical calendar.
Hmm.
But mainly because of a scientist who noticed the way it was arranged when he was studying it back in the 18th century, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that there was to a certain stone in Stonehenge, what's known as the heel stone, would arrange so that when the sun rose on the summer solstice, it would
Mm-hmm.
be almost exactly aligned with that stone.
Hmm.
Um, so that was the major theory of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, currently today, there is some discussion about whether that exactly is true.
Right.
So actually, if you look in the opposite direction of the heel stone from that position, you one would notice that actually on the in midwin on the winter solstice
Mm-hmm.
at sunrise, the is actually more accurate than the actual heel stone would be
Hmm.
on the summer solstice at sunset. So
Interesting.
and
So,
actually there's evidence
mm-hmm.
found nearby Stonehenge, found of remains possibly from ceremonies, particularly animal remains that were determined to be that were about 9 months old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was believed that Stonehenge was used as a point for ceremonies, particularly at the winter solstice.
Right. So I have an interesting question. Um, so when we're talking about Stonehenge, right, and you talk about how some stones line up better than other stones for different, times, right? Well, when we talk about when Stonehenge was built, right, you said it was built around 2 to 3,000 BC, right?
Yeah.
So that'd be like 4,000 years ago, about, right?
Yep. Around.
So let's think about this, right? So what would the night sky have looked like then, right? Would it be the same as what it looks like now?
Not particularly, because actually, it's actually noted because some as time over great periods of time over periods of thousands of years, the night sky can change or what the
Mm-hmm.
process what's known as basically precession.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in the according to Heelstone, around the time it was built, the Heelstone actually would have been two sun widths further to the right of where the sun would actually rise
Mm.
on the summer solstice. So actually, then it would actually be less accurate than it would
Oh
be
wow.
than it is today. So
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons why they believe that it wasn't exactly it was used for the summer solstice, but rather the winter solstice. So
Got you. Got you.
and
Interesting.
actually and actually, if you look at the line of the winter solstice from 4,000 years ago, actually would have been more accurate
Mm-hmm.
than it is today. So
Hmm. Madeline, you were gonna say something?
Oh, it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's it almost kind of like sounds like a sundial,
Yeah.
like a giant sundial.
Right.
yeah,
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking, right?
yeah,
And we can speculate all day, right,
yeah,
about Stonehenge
yeah.
and what it was built for, right? But that's not the only ancient Celtic site that's been found, right? So what are some of the other ones that we know of, Caleb?
Actually, there are two.
Mm-hmm.
One which is found in um, an area region known as Orkney, Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
which is on the Northern Isles of Scotland, known as Maeshowe,
Mm.
which is a cairn, or otherwise known as a burial site, which is actually even older than the pyramids of Egypt.
Wow.
It was built in 2800 BC,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually is an even better calendar than Stonehenge. Actually,
Really?
despite being much older, because around the time of the winter solstice, at sunset, you could for the few weeks around there, it actually the sun aligned so perfectly that it can actually shine and light up the main passageway in that at that site.
Really? Wow.
So
Hmm. Interesting. So it's kind of interesting, right? That we can tell when these specific dates are, right? Even though they may not have had written calendars, right? We still can determine based on some architectural things, right? How, like what time of the year it'll be, right? And
Yeah.
that will come into play a little bit later on, right, Madeline?
Yeah.
When we talk
I
about some
think
of the festivals and how we knew when, or how they knew, right? How the ancient Celtic people knew when to start to celebrate or when to get really excited because a festival is coming up, right?
yeah, the a lot of the ancient peoples are actually quite clever in like how they would do things to like keep track of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Caleb. So what about this other one?
This one is known as Newgrange, which is actually found in the county of Meath in Ireland, in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
This is actually even older than Maze Howe, and actually was built around 3200 BC, making it older than all the previous sites we briefly mentioned. And this one was mainly first listed as a burial site, but actually it's also believed to be used as a temple for ceremonies. Because the way that just like Mesa, it is also aligned with the winter solstice, but instead of like Mesa, which is aligned with the sunset winter solstice, it is aligned so that this opening known as the roof box would align during the winter solstice sunrise, and will light up the main passageway, almost completely bathing it in light. So,
Snippy.
So
interesting how you have that competing, like you've got, and they're in two different places, right? So that's kind of the crazy thing, right? You have the sunrise one place and sunset in another, right? That's kind of interesting. Okay, so we kind of gave a little tease to this just a few seconds ago, right? But when we talk about these different archaeological sites, right, and how we might know what they were used for, right? We we kind of got to that they gave us indications of when certain dates were coming up, right? Or when certain dates were here. And that kind of lets us know, hey, it's about to be party time, right, Madeline?
Yeah, so as with a lot of ancient peoples, the Celts their whole calendar was kind of based around like agriculture, and such as like planting, harvest, stuff to do with cattle. And so they had a bunch of like very seasonal holidays. And the four most important were what were called cross-quarter days. And these cross-quarter days, they were in between equinoxes and solstices and traditionally marked the beginning and ends of seasons. Now, the Celts split their year into light and dark halves. And so you always had 2 cross-quarter days during the light half of the year and 2 cross-quarter days during the dark half. So the names of these cross-quarter days were Beltane, Lunasa, Samhain, and Imbolc. So the first one that I mentioned, Beltane, funny story, I learned about this because my senior year I had to read a book called Salem Falls, and the holiday of Beltane kind of plays into that story in a large way. But it is the cross-quarter day between the summer equinox, or not spring equinox and summer solstice. Right. So around May 1st. And
so Madeline, let me pause you for just 10 seconds here. So in Stellarium, there's actually something that's really cool that we can do, right? And so Stellarium is the program that we're using to broadcast the sky here, right? And what Stellarium allows us to do is it not only allows us to see the night sky as it is today, but through modeling, it allows us to actually go back in time and view the night sky in any time and any place on Earth, right? So what we've done here, so Madeline was talking about May 1st, right? So what we did was we went to the year 1 AD, and what we're seeing is the sky on May 1st in the year 1 AD at about this time, so about 6:15, 6:20-ish, right? And it kind of lets us have a big connection to what the ancient Celtic peoples might have really been seeing during these times, right? And so as Madeline goes through some of these cross-quarter days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fast forward us a little bit further, right? And the interesting thing is, you can see as we transition from, this is going backwards, right? So May to April, April to March, you see that sunset, this is the same time, right? So it's still right around 6:15, but sunset is happening significantly earlier. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do, just so that we can see the night sky, is I'm going to go ahead and just put us way forward in time. So we're at about 11:30-ish. So this would have been what the ancient Celtic people in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, would have been seeing on May 1st of the year 1 AD at about 11:30. So exactly what Madeline is talking about, right, is that cross-quarter day. What you're seeing on the screen is exactly what, or a representation. Hopefully, it wasn't raining that day, right? Of what the ancient Celtic peoples would have seen at this time. So Madeline, I apologize. I didn't mean to steal your thunder here, but I wanted to just kind of give a little bit of a background here as to what I was doing.
We wouldn't want them to think that we were in Muncie when
exactly.
we're talking about the Celts in Ireland.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Beltane was basically it marked the beginning of the light half of the year, and like talked up or it was one of the light half of the year cross quarter days, and it's just where summer begins, and like they would push their cattle to the summer pastures. So then around August 1st, you have the cross quarter day Lunasa, which is the cross quarter day between the summer solstice and the autumnal equinox. And so this kind of just marked the beginning of the harvest season, and traditionally they would do things with the first fruits of their harvest.
And so we can see now that the sky is a little bit different, right? The locations of the stars are a little bit different because we've transitioned 3 months in advance, right? So we're now looking at August 1st at about 11:30 or 11:30 p.m., right?
Yeah, so there you have that. And then the next one a lot of people might know about and recognize, and that's Samhain, which is around October 31st or November 1st. And it was the cross quarter day between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. And so you guys, did you guys catch the date that I said? Because it should sound awfully familiar.
November 1st?
November 1st or October 31st.
October 31st.
That sounds like a pretty familiar holiday.
I don't know, Caleb. What do you think, brother? What happens on October 31st?
I mean, now I instantly want some candy, maybe we'll dress up,
Yeah.
So we can talk about Halloween, right, Madeline?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the I'm glad that you guys must have paid attention during Celestial Origins when that was playing. But there are some ancient Celtic customs from Samhain that influence Halloween. So like the dressing up, for example, you can thank some Celtic ancestors for that. But it was basically the end of the harvest season, and
so hold on. So you're saying, let me say this. You're saying that I have the ancient Celtic peoples to thank for like being able to dress up as a ninja when I was in 2nd grade?
In a way, yeah. Their practices influence.
Do you think they would have thought 4,000 years in the future that a 2nd grader would be dressing up as a ninja?
I don't know.
Maybe something to think about. Something to think about.
Time travel and ask.
That's fair. I'll get right on that. I got you.
Yeah. So a fun little thing about Samhain was that they usually like marked it when the Pleiades was at zenith, or the oh man, Barrington would be disappointed that I can't remember the definition of zenith, but the Pleiades would be at approximately zenith at midnight, and that's how they knew that, hey, time to celebrate Samhain.
So we are right about at midnight on October 31st, right? So we talk about zenith, we are talking about the highest point in the sky, right? So the Pleiades, okay, and might make it a little bit, leaving the atmosphere on I think makes it easy, but we'll always start to find the Pleiades, right? We'll always start at Orion's belt, and then we'll travel up, and zooming in might help just a little bit here, right? So we start at Orion's belt, we move up, we can see the V of Taurus. You've got Betelgeuse, or Aldebaran right here, sorry. Aldebaran, Betelgeuse is the one that's in Orion, right? So you've got Aldebaran, that lets you know where Taurus is, right? And then a little bit further up, there's this cluster of stars right here, right? And that's the Pleiades. That's what we're talking about, right? So, sorry about that, Madeline. So we're talking about Pleiades, the Pleiades being at the zenith, right? The highest point.
Yeah. So there you have it with Samhain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is Imbolc. And that was the cross quarter day between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. And it also actually influenced some holidays that we kind of celebrate, which actually was last week. So does anyone remember what the fun little holiday was last week?
Groundhog Day, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
Great movie, by the way. Great movie.
Yeah, I have not seen that movie in a while.
I would highly recommend watching that movie again. It is hilarious.
Yeah, so anyways, the thing that from Imbolc, that it was the beginning of spring, and the thing that really influenced our modern Groundhog Day was that the Celts would practice something called weather divination, and they believed that if you had bad weather on Imbolc, that meant that a great summer was going to be coming soon.
Interesting.
So
that sounds something familiar to like Groundhog Day, you know?
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that definitely influenced the things. And so this holiday was kind of all about like the preparing for planning and just getting milking the lambs and all that stuff. And this is where the light half of the year began for the Celts. So actually, one other fun thing that kind of connects with what Caleb talked about is that there were some tombs that were built that when, I forget whether it was the sun rose or set, but on Imbolc, the light would from the rising or setting sun would be shining through the entrance to the tomb, which is kind of cool and has a little bit of a magical vibe to it.
Just noting here, like, I'm not, as you said, Madeline, their year was mainly marked with the seasons. I mean, I imagine, having ways to tell, what season was coming, would be very important, especially for like, farming or, other things they would do during the year. So having a way to tell the time of the year would be extremely useful. So
yeah.
No, for sure.
About that.
Okay. So, we kind of thank you, Madeline. That's amazing. So, one of the other things that we wanted to do for archaeoastronomy, right, since we're the Constellation Crew, right, we kind of wanted to relate some of these ancient Celtic traditions, some of the ancient Celtic constellations to what we might be more familiar with, right? And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to go into some of these constellations that are pretty well known, or at least some of them, right, might be pretty well known in modern times, and kind of relate them to what the Celtic people might have believed, right? So I wanted to start out, and I will be taking full advantage here of the search function in Stellarium, where it allows me to type in anything, right, and be able to find it immediately. Right? So it might be a little bit easier to see if I not only turn on the constellation art, right, but also some of the labels, right? So what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about Perseus. So we're going to be talking about this constellation right here, okay? And for the Greco-Roman, right, tradition, Perseus was a half god, half man, right? He slays the Minotaur or no, that's Theseus, sorry. He slays the Gorgon, right? And it's kind of funny because some of those Greco-Roman traditions actually followed the peoples who eventually went to the Celtic lands, right? And so they looked at Perseus, and in this, at this time, they thought that it was the Greek, they thought it was their god Luch, right? And you might recognize that first name just a little bit because Madeline had actually talked about Luchnesad, right? So Madeline, remind me, when did that occur?
That was in the, oh gosh, it was in August.
Exactly,
So
right?
summertime.
So Luchnesad, right, was in August 1st, right? And Luch is their sun god. And this is actually really interesting because the ancient Celtic peoples believed that when you die, you actually become a bird, right? So the name actually means robin. So Luch means robin. And it again becomes the idea that when you die, your soul becomes a bird. And the interesting thing here is that Luchnesdad being celebrated in August 1st was when they said that Luch died, right? Where the sun would start to set and the days would become shorter. So like Madeline had said, right? There's these two competing times of the year, right? There's the light and dark periods, right? And so they used Perseus because Perseus was a winter constellation. And that's why, when Luch dies, you're able to see it more often. So I just thought that one was kind of interesting, and that one was a really cool one to mention. So another one that we'll focus on is in the Greco-Roman tradition, right? We've got Gemini, which are the twins, right? We had a Constellation Crew episode about Gemini last spring, so spring 2021. If you want to check that out, please visit the Brown Planetarium's YouTube channel or Facebook. I would suggest the YouTube channel because I think it's a little easier to find, right? But Caleb and I actually were talking about Gemini together on that show. And Caleb was my twin. And when I say Caleb was my twin, why do I say that? Why do I say that, crew? Do you remember? Oh.
From the episode?
I'm just asking, why would I call Caleb my twin? When I say twins, what are we talking about with Gemini?
Well, that's what Gemini represent, the twins Castor and Pollux.
Perfect. Exactly, right? So in, the Greek tradition, Gemini is Castor and Pollux, right? Well, the interesting thing is that, again, we see some of these similar themes because in the Celtic tradition, this was actually Gwyn and Gwythyr, right? So they were brothers, and they were actually two men that were fighting over the love of a woman, right? And for them, that woman was actually what they viewed Cancer as, right? So they were right next to each other, and it was brothers fighting for the love of Cruliad, right? And they're called the Rivals of May, which I thought was really interesting. And the twins were seen, they weren't twins, but the brothers were seen as the different competing aspects of the year. Right? They were seen as the light and dark kind of sides of the year battling against each other for the love of this beautiful woman. Right? And so again, go ahead, Caleb.
I just wanted to mention, I correct me if I'm wrong, but you said they were called the Rivals of May.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, Gemini, the astrological sign, actually is during from I think May 21st to June 20th.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I definitely think the Gemini is in May, and so
yeah. So
again, go ahead, Madeline.
It goes kind of to it really drives home that no matter where you are on Earth, you see the same sky.
Exactly.
Even if you might make different shapes, or you may connect the dots with the stars a little bit differently.
Right. And so the last one I wanted to focus on, although I will say something that's kind of interesting. So crew, I noticed this. This is not something that I had planned to talk about, but I thought it was kind of cool. When we look at the moon, what does it look like during this time? What's the hue on that moon look like? Can you guys tell? So it's got a little bit of a reddish hue. I don't know if you guys can see that from the stream very well, but it's actually got a little bit of a reddish hue, which would indicate what?
lunar eclipse.
A lunar eclipse, right? So it's kind of cool that I picked like this is a totally random day. This is literally December 31st of the year 1, and we kind of got to see something that was really interesting. But anywho, but that's really cool about Stellarium, right? Is you can go through and you can see some of these different astronomical events that occurred way back in the day, right? And so it's really cool to be thinking, you know, if they saw a blood moon, which this one's just slightly tinted pink, but you know, think about it. If they saw a blood moon, like that'd be, you know, really, really crazy, and you know, might be something that they took into account, right? And so I just thought that was a really cool connection to make. But anywho, so anyway, last one I wanted to talk about is probably one of the most well-known constellations, right? And I know it is one of our crew members, and I'm pretty sure it's Caleb out of the three of us, right? It's I think it's his favorite constellation. Am I right there, Madeline?
Excuse you? I mean, Orion might be
You're right.
Caleb's
I'm
favorite
sorry.
constellation too, but we all know from not last week's, the episode 2 weeks ago, I couldn't stop talking about Orion.
Right. And so I did want to bring in Orion because I know it is Madeline's favorite constellation, and it is kind of interesting because it highlights the again, it kind of highlights the parallels that you see in different cultures and their belief systems, because you know, Orion is a hunter in the Greek tradition, right? And in the Celtic tradition, you have Cernunnos, right? And he was the god of wild things. And he was a hunter, right? So he was a god of the hunt, basically, right? He's the god of wild things. And so I just thought it was really interesting because, you know, not only that, he's also viewed as a being that has antler horns, and I thought that was kind of cool because obviously Taurus has the horns as well. But I just thought it was something that was really cool to see going on, right? But anywho, so I just thought it was a really good thing to highlight again, just that the parallels that we see from the Greco-Roman traditions to the ancient Celts, and then obviously now when we look at the sky, kind of what we see and what we know some of those stories were.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right,
it's like looking at the sky. It's like looking, because I know you and I, Greg, both have Irish ancestry, so presumably way back in the day, Celtic ancestry. So it's kind of cool to see how our far off ancestors looked at the sky.
Right. And it's just really cool to make some of those connections, right? Across time and across, you know, I guess just across time, right? But and
I might have another connection. You said that this being that that they saw him as the god of the wild things. I believe the Greeks also had their own, you know, kind of god of the wild, who was known as the god Pan, who who was like in the form of, like, I think a satyr.
Yep, a satyr.
So
half goat, half man, right?
I literally imagined like the satyr from Percy Jackson way back in the day.
I love those books.
Those are good books. Those are good books for sure.
High quality.
Alrighty, guys. So just to kind of wrap things up for everybody, I did want to shout out our planetarium here. We have an amazing planetarium staff. Unfortunately, we don't have any live shows going on this semester, at least not right now. But please pay attention. Follow us online, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Our channels are on the screen. Please like, subscribe, and pay attention, because we will have live shows coming back. And highly recommend our live shows. They are really good. Madeline was talking about the one that Celestial Origins that we play around Halloween, and we talk about the origins of Halloween, right? And so we really do welcome everybody to you know, like, share, and try to interact with us a little bit as well. Right?
Yeah, we're doing some fun things.
Yes.
While we don't have live shows, so as detailed by the amazing updates on Insta and Twitter, Facebook.
Alrighty, guys. Anything else, crew?
Have a fun weekend, y'all.
Stay dry.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for sticking with us, guys. We really appreciate it. Tune in next week. We've got one of our other Constellation Crew episodes coming up. We're gonna visit a specific couple constellations and talk about some of the cool stuff. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.